today we have our another new episode. This is 1245 episode. We have our world famous speaker, Professor Viva from Canada, and Mr. Dan. And we're going to discuss and justice in and we're going to addressing the difference impact of climate change. You know, climate change is a very important factor for emerging economy, especially country like Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Indonesia, even Middle East. We are observing Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Africa. Many countries have impact on climate change. So we have a very specific solution. You know, World Talent Economy Forum, we already start our dialogue and policy discussions with different countries, emerging economy prime minister office. We are organizing conference and summit with them, with impact investment centers, with different climate change ministries. But educating people is most important factors. So today, Professor Viva and her colleague, Mr. Donald, actually educate our community. After the show, we will share our content with few million people in our World Talent Economy Forums communities. And hopefully through this process, we educate and there is an opportunity for investment in this company. So we're going to discuss on that particular point. Professor Viva, what you want to discuss about equity and justice in climate action?
Oh, yes. Well, just to remind people, I have a hydroxyl dispersal technology that is now being built and we're starting to scale, and we're working with developing solutions for the Asian region, which is the region that the World Talent Economy Forum originates in. And so we would like to tell people that we think that the equity and the justice is missing from the Asian region because the air quality is poor, there's desertification and inclement weather. And those are all areas that we can work on with our all natural water-based oxygen compounds in the future. So the weather and climate that is around us has been hijacked a little bit by geoengineering particulate programs and particulate chemical-based weather programs that are being contracted for by different countries in the Middle East, Asia, so on and so forth. There's a little bit happening in my local area. We have spraying overhead as well. So these programs, they offer what we would call a negative differential, and they're toxic to the environment, and they involve a different paradigm than the paradigm we are working with the water and oxygen based system. And we've also found out, unfortunately, that weather can be used as a weapon and a weapon of domination. So we're following a very, very gripping story in the United States through an organization called geoengineeringwatch.org. And they have recently filmed a documentary where the United States Air Force officials have admitted that they really only and mainly think about this type of treatment of different nation states and whatnot, in terms of visiting them with negative weather events and so on and so forth, snowstorms, floods, and all that kind of thing. And we're trying to call for a halt to that whole program and some kind of accountability of some kind to happen. We're powerless to do anything but just to exercise our free speech on that matter at this point. So if you want to learn more, we'll have all the links after the show. So Sharif, that's really what I wanted to start with.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Donald, what you want to discuss about equity and justice in climate action? Mr. Donald, can you unmute, please?
Your mute button.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Yes, it's a very big subject. I concur with Viva in one respect that there's a lot of politics being played with climate and it's been hijacked somewhat. We like to keep it real, and we like to keep it to solutions that can be deployed. And we offer a lot of solutions. We can offer national, regional, corporate, and even personal solutions, small farming communities, individuals, blocks of flats, whatever. I mean, we can scale our technologies to whatever need arises. And because because we've not just developed technologies, we've developed paradigms with which to deploy them, which is most important. We can also assist with funding in certain areas. We have access to certain funding instruments that can keep the cost of these things low. One of the main things that we're concentrating on at the moment is no low carbon concrete. And we're doing this with pozzolanic silica. And believe it or not, there is a sand shortage worldwide. You wouldn't have thought so, but there is. And there's sand piracy. So there's a lot of beach sand which is cut with salt. People would be used to fly ash being used in cement, and the cement augmentation material. We can replace that with the pozzolanic silica and avoid all of the contamination issues that go with it. And we want to work with local communities and with people where pozzolanic silicas and basic sand supplies are, so that we can actually create carbon neutral concrete. Pozzolanic silica by itself can offer up to 40% carbon reduction straight off the bat. So it's worth having a look at. And of course, the MPA increases too. The strength of concrete also increases quite dramatically in some cases. We have 5 sources of pozzolanic sands identified so far in North America, South America, West Africa, and Oceania. And we'd be looking and very interested in hearing from people who would like to help us develop that and create carbon-free concrete. We have other technologies. We are very big with waste to energy and waste mitigation, especially with the mitigation of plastics. And we're a complete CCU, or CCUS as they like to call it now. We don't want to bury the stuff. We want to actually use it and create synthetic fuels. We can do carbonate looping. There's a whole raft of technologies that we can do with that. And what's more important for developing communities is biomass is actually a incredibly important part of getting to zero emissions and zero waste. You can't just get rid of the rubbish, if you like, without putting a bit of biomass with it. Otherwise, you just can't get the technologies or the paradigms to work correctly. So, for developing countries and for poorer communities, we like to engage with vertical farming programs and with biomass production programs, so that there is extra employment and subsistence and sustainability offered to communities at a more grassroots level. And these are the projects that we like to engage with governments when we get the chance to do so in full ESG frameworks. Okay, back to you, Sheree.
I have a question.
Yes, Lisa.
Yeah, Tom, what are your thoughts? I've got feedback, sorry. What are your thoughts about large, highly densely populated cities versus smaller communities?
In what respect, Viva?
Well, environmentally, human living conditions, and also governmental involvement in people's lives. You know, freedom, access to nature, that kind of thing.
Quite honest, sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, to be quite honest, the scenario put forward by the World Economic Forum is not going to work, and it won't work because it's too encroaching upon the spiritual nature, if you like, and the evolution of people. The second thing that goes with that is that everybody is telling us that the world is overpopulated. It's not overpopulated as much as it's poorly managed. And the people that want to tell us to depopulate and everything else are the ones that have caused the problem in the first place. The next issue that I have with that is the lack of imagination, if you like, with legislation. Everybody's pushing for electric cars, but there aren't enough raw materials on the planet to support that. So the internal combustion engine is going to be here for a very, very long time, but it's running on hydrogen or ammonia. And we have associates and people who are working with us on that to help these things, to help these other methods come through. So it's a matter of balance more than anything else. As far as world population is concerned, there's going to be a change in the demographic of it, but it's going to plateau. It's going to plateau at around 10 billion and then it will slowly decrease. So there is actually an area of self-regulation in here that everybody's not taking into account. When they talk about global warming, and everybody likes to panic about the ice caps now, I think 5,000 years it's going to take to melt the ice caps, and it will have a 73-metre rise in sea level to go along with that. So 5,000 years we'll lose the east coast of America and the east coast of China, and some of low-lying Europe and a few Pacific islands. So the panic that's associated with that is unfounded. So there are other ways to deal with this at the present time. So the politics of this is a little bit out of control, and there are other agendas at work. But if we work with grassroots communities and we work with people who wish to solve their own immediate issues, then everything is possible. Especially where it comes to the smaller communities, because there's no need to. If we have a look at what AI is going to cause for us, the enclosure movement in Europe, they bought all the land up and they got rid of all of the tenant farmers and all of the labourers, and they went to mechanisation, and they forced everybody into the city so that they could become a cheap labour force. And what's happening now, of course, with AI is they're going to have millions of people who will be technically unemployed. But where do they go? They have nowhere to go. There's no cities for them to go into. So the scenario here, of course, is that there have to be developed local solutions. And sustainability is an industry on its own. And sustainability is a growth industry, and it can cause massive amounts of economic gain to both the communities and the nations, but nobody's embracing it. That is the sad truth of what we've been looking at. Greenwashing is not necessarily, that all goes on, but there's people, isn't it? They can't live in the perfect world. But in actual fact, it's the fact that no one's embracing the virtually endless domestic zenith that can be had in development and growth if one embraces sustainability and starts to change things. With an example of constructive agriculture, essentially, if it goes more vertical, you can use the poorest ground, even rock piles, to grow stuff on. And it's a controlled environment because it's inside of the bubble, if you like. So it's somebody was talking to me recently and they called it, it sounds like a Mars kibbutz. And I said, well, that's one way of looking at it. But essentially, it insulates you from climate change. It does not use any productive land at the moment. It can get 100% sustainability in production for food, so there will not be any shortages, and it will allow for the rewilding and the repurposing of existing land. And
it's really exciting. Donald has shared some of his business prospectuses with me, and I really admire what he's doing. Can you hear me okay? Okay, and so I just wanted to interject a little bit more about my agenda too as well. How are we doing for time? We're okay. The other thing with the climate disaster and the carbon dioxide levels, there's a lot of discussion about CO2 levels. There's a big controversy, and we're trying to put on a conference here for June 15th in Kamloops, British Columbia, and we have a keynote speaker. His name is Dr. David Dilley, and he is a very senior meteorologist, weather and hurricane predictor who worked for decades for the US government. And he is going to teach about how we do not need to be so incredibly concerned about CO2 levels. And so, what that does is it challenges the whole paradigm of carbon taxes and ESG when it comes to CO2 emissions, and also legacy CO2 emissions. And it's going to be very, very interesting. If you'd like to get a foretaste of what Dr. Dilley teaches, he bases his science on the orbits that are found in the planetary system here in our solar system that cause warming and cooling cycles. And he is a specialist on those cycles. And there's a Milankovitch cycle that we're currently at the warming peak of, while we have some extra CO2 emissions. And we're going to be looking at some cooling from the Milankovitch cycles in the next 50 to 60 years. So we're going to have more of a danger of coldness as a humanity in the future here sooner than people think. And so all of this very dire worry about the CO2 levels, CO2 happens to be the most minor greenhouse gas. There isn't one that's less potent, really. At the end of the day, water is more potent. All of the synthetic greenhouse gases are far hundreds and sometimes thousands of times more potent, even though they're not as prevalent in the atmosphere. There are short-lived climate pollutants as well too that the new industry is putting up. So this is where we're seeing the middle classes being marginalized by carbon reduction policy. So I just saw a question flash by there, Sharif. Could you run it again? How do marginalized communities disproportionately suffer from the effects of climate change, and what steps can be taken to address this? Yeah, so for me, what it is bearing down on your agriculture, increasing your biomass productivity, getting your waste management in order as much as you can, planting trees. Trees actually stimulate their own weather through the volatile organic sweat that they give off as they grow and live. So it starts to create positive weather patterns. And so that's where I would start with the communities. And we have an organization called the Omega Settlements Foundation. And we see a lot of this happening really nicely in Africa. So we're working very hard to convince the United Nations to help the Omega Settlements Foundation fund some very meritorious projects in this specific area, vulnerable communities in Africa and around the world. So if you want to connect up with that, you can check them out on Facebook. And this is what that we're doing. Reduction Tech Incorporated was the founding corporate sponsor of that organization. And so we'll be going forward with that as much as we can as well, with our staff and everybody helping out.
We've never really bought into climate argument. I just don't see that we've got the data. The data is not long enough. We've got millions of years of evolution and only a few centuries of results. So, but we do buy into the littering, and the laws have always been there for litter. And humanity has been a bit of a pigsty on this planet, and it needs to, unpopularly so, I suppose, to most people's sensibilities, they need to clean up their act. And that's what we concentrate on. We concentrate on the existing frameworks that are there, and we clean up communities and we clean up the environment, and we do things in a very simple way, with simple technologies that provide employment, provide free energy, and sustainable systems. And we like to work with agriculture and the things that communities do already, and we mix them across the board with small industrialisation processes. And believe it or not, mining can have quite a very interesting adjunct to a total economic paradigm for developing communities. And this is what we've been working on in Africa and elsewhere. And we put our paradigms to government from time to time. We had a very big submission to the United Nations people about Madagascar recently, but of course they didn't do much about. We could have solved it within a matter of about 9 months, 12 months, and got things back on track there. But anyway, we just have to wait and see with things. But there are basic needs in water, food production, agricultural reform, energy, waste, and also solving the litter problem, and then developing what natural resources and other things that are native to where they are. And then we work with that. And if we can find some larger umbrella activity to involve them with, then we work with that so that we can get very integrated and circular economic systems that not only work for them, but work within large communities and possibly even regions. And we've even done national planning for people from time to time. Anyway, that's what we're about anyway.
Mm-hmm. I saw a question run by um, about systemic changes in vulnerable populations and what kind of things can be done. I think overall, everywhere, if we have sort of a thematic change into different types of wealth transfers from pockets of any kind of higher wealth being let go into areas of lesser wealth with the right kind of uh, mutual agreement between that population that's receiving the wealth, what they want to do, what they need. They're getting their advice and their support and everything like that, and that the wealth is released. And there is difficulty with this globally. There is a very large concern that there's a wealth transfer happening from our middle classes and our proletariat populations everywhere, and it's being lost to somewhere. I'll just put it that way. And we need to actually reverse that trend, and we can do that with all kinds of vehicles. We can do it with our climate repair bonds at Reduction Tech. Donald has bonds that are issuable as well too. We have them certifiable. We meet all the regulatory requirements that we have to have in developing and scaling our technology up. And our stakeholders always involve the least wealthy stakeholders in any project arena, and they're held as absolute equals, and they are advocated for and protected.
Doesn't necessarily have to change so much. I think we have to probably turn the clock back in time a bit, and the older frameworks actually are the ones that work best. And the reason for that is because they've lasted. And these are the frameworks that we like to tap into. And nothing works in isolation of the universe, let alone anywhere else. So we have to be as inclusive as we possibly can with whatever we can. Have at hand to be able to create the, the change and the wealth and the security and other things that go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially the social. That's the S in our ESG. Environmentally, we do everything that's zero waste and zero emissions to begin with, and we just work from there. But we have a social engineer on our team. We have an agronomist on our team as well. They're both PhDs, and everybody. And we have some top quality engineers as well. We are a project house. We do very large scale mining builds, mining process builds and power station builds, etc. We have a full EPC capability and consultancy available. And we concentrate on, and we love to concentrate on involving local communities and training and offering all of these benefits that would not necessarily be available to outreach communities. So, yeah, I think it's about inclusion. It's not about exclusion or paying lip service to people for a few percent of the project, which is then looted and taken away by someone else.
Yeah, and we have a lot of people that are very socialist leaning, which is just fine. It's not incompatible with people that are capitalist or free market entrepreneurs at all. They have to work hand in hand. If they don't want to support a for-profit company, we also have what's called an auxiliary nonprofit that will take money in from folks like that, small amounts of money to support our research and development to help us get our numerous, we have probably a dozen intellectual property components that will be rolled out to address the environmental issues, starting number one with those that come to us and say, look, we're going to line up some financing and we want you to do what you're going to do. And we'll show them, we'll do all the show and tell all along the way. So we do have nonprofit avenues as well, too.
How do we get this to happen with the lawmakers? The answer is basically you work with them and you do it yourself. Basically ignore them, just get on with the job, and then you put and remove, basically keep government and use government for what it does best, which is essentially decision making.
Is what? Pardon me?
Decision making. Get them to do the permits and everything else, and then you go ahead and just get the rest of it done. Somebody will now ask, where's the money coming from? The money's out there, believe it or not, and you just know how, and you have to know how to get at it and where it comes from. And then you have to have a very, very good plan of how to use it so that the whole thing is accountable and it works well. This is about inclusion, and it's not about it's not necessarily about politics being a socialism being the politics of envy, as Churchill said. This is about socialism being the caveats by which we run our democracy. These are the principles of our religious faiths and of our laws, of equality and fairness. And so there has to be some form of socialism somewhere, otherwise the system isn't going to work.
Yeah, there has to be a basic set of needs and wants, by everybody, and I'm a little bit of a globalist. I'd like to see, our program for the climate, shepherding of the climate, not be, used for anything but to provide the infrastructure so that the entire humanity can thrive. And so I'm hoping people will align with that vision with us on that. And that does include everybody that's here, and we'll just have to see how people interact with what we're putting forth as a structure to get the job done, and also enjoy this absolute gem of a planet.
Flash just came up on the message box is that you've got to grow it yourself from the grassroots. You've got to come through it. You've got to put the programs into place. The sustainability and the social justice comes from you, and then it goes back up the chain. There's no other way to do that. You can't rely upon the chain. You can't rely on people at the top to do it because they're not going to, and that's been very obvious for centuries. So it's not about being socialist or anything else like that. It's about embracing capitalism for what it is and using it and making it inclusive. And we start with the smallest of building blocks, if you like, and then we build it out. And with that, then government doesn't have to make those decisions for you because you are the voters and you are the people that are structuring then the nature of the governance that goes down. And that to me is the true meaning of your ESG. That's been our philosophy and our approach for a long time.
Yeah, Professor Viva, we have a question from our audience. What strategy can be implemented to empower frontier communities to participate meaningfully in decision-making process related to climate adaptation and mitigation effort?
Well, I'll use the Omega Settlements Foundation, and the word settlements is in there for a reason. For the climate affected people, they need to be. We need to settle up a little bit with these people, and everybody pretty much knows that. So those folks can, with their cell phones, they can pummel the authorities with petitions and requests and advocacy to say, look, organizations or NGOs like the Omega Settlements Foundation, we want them. We want them to help us. We want to work with them. And this organization is young, but we have all our paperwork and our vision documents and governing documents in place. So when I email the United Nations Secretary for the High Commission on Human Rights, I don't get follow-up email back. So I have told our clients with the Omega Settlements Foundation that I've been working on connecting with those people, because we know that the European Union has now got 100 billion, I think, available of funding that the EU is going to release, probably a significant portion of it for climate. And then there is also the United Nations Loss and Damages Fund. The first tranche of that was $60 billion. And I have heard nothing about where those funds have gone, whether they've even been set up to be dispersed. But I should already have in my hands a route to talk to those people, and I don't have it yet.
Our approach is whatever need you have at a personal level, business level, community level, it doesn't matter how big or small you are, whatever the needs are in your particular area, or you need to be able to embrace more ESG principles into what you're doing to avoid the coming onslaught of taxation and other things which are going to be coming our way very, very soon. Just basically, you sort of write to us and tell us what you want to do, and then we construct frameworks around that and put an execution plan to it. And we do these all the time to people, so don't have to pay for that.
We
Just
do.
to us, and we see if we can work for a solution, and that's how we do the building blocks to make things happen and to create the project. So the projects themselves are self-evident, if you like, and we see what we can do with them and what frameworks. And you'd be surprised how many people can get on board with this. There are a lot of people in government who have been in government and want to actually get these things to happen. We do have quite a number of people who help us out. It's just a matter of getting in contact with us and telling us what you particularly want or need, and then we can work to see if the scenario can be created whereby a proper inclusive development program can be constructed. Something which makes everybody know as to where we need to be.
Thank you. We have another questions. Uh, what can international agreement and collaborations be leveraged to promote fairness and inclusivity in addressing climate change impact, especially for developing nations? and indigenous communities. Yes.
I want to
Professor.
address that for the geoengineering context. We have to continue with, I believe it's the state of Tennessee has done a ban on geoengineering. We need to call for a halt on it so we can allow the planet to respond. Nobody knows what the baseline system is going to do without all of that chemical and metallic particulate interference. And the interference we're going to have with the added forest fires and stuff, we don't know how much damage that's going to cause to the ozone layer. So we just need to really go to basically a planetary ground state as soon as possible and get ready to shepherd the situation with things that are non-toxic and clean at all levels of the community from grassroots up.
But if we go to the smaller level of things, essentially, one of the biggest negatives that we come across is that say, oh, it's too new or it's never been done before. So we build one, and then when they say that, we just say it's over there in the corner. Go and have a look. The next thing, of course, is build it and they will come. That's definitely true. And the third thing, and this is where it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you like, is that nobody's fully actually understood the economic power of this ESG and sustainability. Because when it comes to a reasonable scaled project, the ESG and the environment, the sustainability that's put in is very powerful, and in many cases it can actually pay for the entire finance of the entire project just by simply encouraging the green aspects and sustainable aspects of it. There's a complete economy there in there that's completely untapped. And once we can start to show this at some reasonable scale, and it has to occur at grassroots level, at a smaller level first. And once it's there and it's on the ground, that's going to change things. Once people actually understand there's more money to be made at this, they're not going to do the other thing. Basic human nature. Why would you spend $50 million in interest on a $500 million loan when you could spend an extra $30 or $40 million on your ESG, and the amount of raised profits pays for the interest for your loan for your whole project? Why wouldn't you do that? And anyway, for some reason or other, people don't get it. Hey, come and talk to us. We want to get out there and change the system a bit. We want to get out there and make sure that things can become better for people, you know. And it has to start with the people on the ground who want to do this, and then it'll move further up the chain to government. Government at the moment it adopts policies and it likes one-dimensional solutions, you know, sort of the old Greek syllogism, the ABC, 1, 2, 3. We don't live in that world anymore. We live in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 world, or even 6 or 7. We have to change our thinking to incorporate a few more variables in the way things are done. You know? We need to grow up.
Professor Viva, you want to add any point?
She's on mute.
Can you unmute, please?
Trying to talk there.
Professor Viva, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I agree with Donald that a whole new perspective for the political systems, the politicians, the military, industrial, pharmaceutical complex does need to take a step back and really look at what they're putting on the populations with all of those products, and all of them are really a product.
Mhm.
In the world, and the power of corporates to influence government has got to be made. It's got to be brought back into balance. And the economic power of that actually is in sustainability and is available at lower levels. And the sooner we start doing it, then the sooner the equality in the system can become more workable for everybody.
Remember, we are going into a global cooling phase with the Milankovitch cycles. And again, you can go to globalweathercycles.com. That's all one word, lowercase, and you can learn about that. It's very critical for people to understand that humanity actually has the opportunity to keep ourselves within a livable zone, but we have to watch what we do with our fossil fuels very carefully. We are over consuming them. In light of extending the lifespan of humanity into centuries and so on into the future. So something to look at, I think, is that we are headed for probably over a degree change in cooling somewhere in the next 50 to 80 years.
Okay, do you have anything to comment on, Sharif?
No, there is no question. Just I want to add some point as from emerging economies. Specifically, right now we have heat wave, right? In Dhaka, in India, and many other countries in the Asia Pacific, we have heat wave. If you go to this Middle East, you can find in Dubai, Saudi Arabia, we have heavy rain, we have flood, and all of the things actually is very harmful for humanity. So we have to take action, and we need to take action. And our government agency, different corporations, and academia, they need to collaborate with Reduction Tech, as well as we need to go for a solutions, because it's become very uh, problem for our humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I find many people are dying because of this
Mm-hmm.
situation.
One of
Many
the
people.
first things that people can do when it comes to the heat waves, instead of using just water to cool down, is to get a hold of some ice. Just 2 ice cubes can cool you down. So people should be distributing a little bit of ice in the worst moments of it. I think that's really important. And you put it in the areas of your body where your core temperature is. So, your stomach and your armpits, the back of the neck, that kind of thing. It will provide a lot of relief. As far as breaking the heat waves, we've got to get tree infrastructure in there, or large plant. Like, for example, Bangladesh has mangrove trees, 300 rivers, this type of thing. That whole system needs to be encouraged to produce the volatiles as well as transpired moisture into the atmosphere that will contribute to a better weather and climate system in the region. So that's even before reduction tech comes, or it happens at the same time. We need to evolve that and help that as much as possible, that kind of thing, for everybody that's got heat waves.
Yeah, one of the initiatives that we put forward is a series of vertical or smart agriculture, vertical agriculture, enclosed environments. They're cheaper to build than you might think. They're very, very inclusive of local systems, people that provide extra training and so on, and a whole bunch of a raft of benefits from them. Essentially, the consensus with that is that climate change, either way, whatever is going to happen, it's not going to get any better in the near future. It's going to get worse before it gets any better. And as an example, for instance, a large one for us would be a 30-acre establishment. England, if you take England as an example, they're 62% self-sufficient in food. If we put in 200 of these, which is 10,000 acres, on rubbish ground, we can make them 100% self-sufficient. And that extra food production is then insulated against climate and any of the other issues. Then you can start to work with the rehabilitation and repurposing of the other agricultural land that is already in use, and you can actually break the whole thing up. The other thing, and something that you mentioned, Sharif, is very, very important. I go back to a period in the Mayan civilization where they had some bad times from some El Ninos and a few other things, and everything got pretty bad. They had a pretty rough old life, though, for those people, because they had a lot of human sacrifice and the power structures were pretty brutal. But in the end, they just got sick of it and they walked off, and they went and did something else. You can't walk off. You can't go anywhere else unless we're going off the planet. And that's not going to be happening anytime soon. So we have to now really, really think about doing it ourselves, taking control of the situation and making the changes ourselves.
Professor Viva.
Well, I think we've probably provided a significant amount of information and understanding to Sharif's audience. Don't you think, Donald, that I would like to maybe start winding up the show for now and come back in the future for another one, a follow-up of some kind? Maybe let people know who might have joined Reduction Tech with climate repair bonds, or tell people about how much research and development funding came through our nonprofit, all that kind of thing. We can do updates in the future.
Great sketch from this, and I look forward to that. And thank you for inviting me on today, Eva. It's unexpected, and it's been great to actually talk to people and have a discussion about things which don't get talked about often enough or properly enough.
Thanks, Donald.
Thank you.
Okay. And we'll catch up. We'll get some feedback later from you, Sharif.
Mm-hmm. Have a good one. Have coffee or something.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.